Part 1. Hook the Opening Shock. October 24th, 2025. 0700 hours. UTC. The world has just changed. And nobody knows it yet. Across the entire planet, military satellites light up. Deep space radar locks onto targets. Defense systems are activated. Classified protocols that only a few dozen people know about are deployed in absolute silence. But what about the public? NASA releases a routine announcement. A comet. Harmless. It's science. It's standard procedure. There's just one problem. The actions don't match the words. If it's truly harmless, why are systems designed for existential threats being activated like this? Why are specialized satellites being redirected to track an object that the organization itself says can't cause harm? That question has just become patient zero of a mystery about to spread across the world. Part 2. Context and characters. The starting point. To understand why this is strange, we need to know what the system was built to do. The organization is called the International Asteroid Warning Network, IAWN. It exists for one reason only: to detect, track, and coordinate responses to objects that have the potential to crash into us. Not random objects. Asteroids on collision courses, comets with uncertain trajectories, things that could vaporize cities or trigger a global winter. IAWN isn't meant to track things flying safely around the cosmos. They've conducted exercises before, actually, drills and calibration checks, but those were announced as drills. When you publicly tell the world, this is a practice drill, nobody gets alarmed. This time is different. On the morning of October 24th, at 0700 UTC, IAWN issues a bulletin. They call it a scientific opportunity. They say it's routine. But beneath that layer of carefully chosen language lies a detail they didn't mention. Planetary defense protocols, normally reserved exclusively for extinction-level threats, have been quietly activated for an object that they claim poses no danger to anyone. The campaign has a name: 3I Atlas Comet Astrometry Campaign. It runs from November 27th, 2025 to January 27th, 2026. 2 full months, continuous 24/7 observation from observatories across 6 continents. Now, if you're not familiar with this kind of work, let me explain why this is unusual. Astrometry simply means measuring precisely where something is in the sky. You take multiple observations from different locations, calculate the orbit, refine the trajectory. That's standard when tracking near-Earth objects. What's not standard is the level of coordination. Universities, government observatories, networks of amateur observers, all being asked to provide data. Registration opened weeks ago. A workshop is scheduled. This is the kind of infrastructure you set up when you need answers fast and you need them verified by multiple independent sources. This is what you do when you can't afford to be wrong. 6 hours after the IAWN bulletin, NASA appears. Dr. Lindley Johnson, NASA's planetary defense officer, speaks out. 4 words that he repeats in every interview, every press conference, every official channel: no threat to Earth. He says the object will pass roughly 1.8 astronomical units away from us. For reference, that's about 168 million kilometers. The moon is only 384,000 kilometers from us. So by cosmic standards, 3i Atlas isn't even in our neighborhood. It's barely out on the street. But there's another detail that Dr. Johnson doesn't mention. There are sources from within the defense sector, people speaking to news outlets under conditions of anonymity, who have reported that the classified observation platforms operated by the U.S. Space Force have changed their observation focus. Deep space infrared sensors, high-gain radar arrays, assets normally used track foreign satellites in geosynchronous orbit are now all pointed at a comet that, officially, poses no risk. Their spokespersons call it defensive repositioning. Others call it protocol compliance. One person, more bluntly, said it reminded them of the scramble before the 2008 TC3 event, when agencies had 19 hours to confirm that an asteroid was going to hit Sudan, except this time there's no impact, no countdown, no threat. So what are they preparing for? Part 3, Evidence and Proof. To answer that question, we need to look at what we actually know about 3i Atlas. The object was discovered by an automated survey telescope in South Africa. Initially, the scientific reports were very standard. Photometric spectroscopy showed unusual composition. Trajectory confirmed extrasolar origin. Brightness suggested active outgassing. Standard scientific language for a non-standard object. But then, day by day, the story changed. Not because the object changed, but because our reaction to it revealed something about us. Within months, 3i Atlas went from an astronomical curiosity to a planetary defense event. The International Asteroid Warning Network launched a coordinated tracking campaign. Defense satellites were repositioned to maintain observation. Classified platforms began collecting data through channels that don't appear in public databases. Machine learning systems flagged behavioral anomalies. High-energy particle detections raised questions about correlations. And all of this happened while governments maintained that the object poses no threat, that it's just a comet, that there's nothing unusual about any of this. That contradiction, the gap between official reassurance and observable response, is the real story. Look at the details. On October 24, 2025, the IAWN bulletin was released. 6 hours later, NASA issued a statement saying there's no threat. Within hours after that, military satellites begin to shift. The Defense Department calls it defensive repositioning. But defensive against what? There's a harmless object flying over our heads? Or is there something else creating concern that the government doesn't want to talk about? 3. I-Atlas has a hyperbolic orbit. This means it came from interstellar space and it's leaving again. It's not bound by the sun. It's a visitor, not a resident. This makes it completely different from any other object we regularly track. Near-Earth asteroids, they have elliptical orbits. They live in the solar system. 3 Atlas, it's just passing through. So why are we using procedures designed for objects with uncertain trajectories? Why are we gathering data from around the world as if we need to verify its orbit when a hyperbolic orbit is completely determined? History provides a precedent. In 2004, an asteroid called Apophis was discovered. It had a 1 in 45,000 chance of colliding with Earth in 2029. Every agency sprang into action. Telescopes locked onto it. Observations from around the world were contributed. Month by month, the uncertainty narrowed. Eventually, the threat was eliminated. But the observation campaign that followed set the standard for how we respond to uncertain threats. The 3i Atlas campaign has the same intensity, the same urgency. Observatories on 6 continents, amateur networks, government organizations, all mobilized at once. Except there's no uncertainty about impact. The trajectory is clear. The distance is safe. So what are we focusing on? This is where the unofficial story starts to diverge from the official one. News outlets, particularly those with sources inside defense and aerospace sectors, have reported rumors of something called anomaly detection readiness. That's not an official term. You won't find it in any NASA document. But people working adjacent to planetary defense systems have begun using it in private conversations. The idea, as best as anyone can piece together, is that modern defense postures aren't just about impacts anymore. They're about detecting things that don't fit, objects that behave unexpectedly, signals that shouldn't be there. It's a shift from kinetic defense to informational defense. Less about stopping rocks, more about understanding what we're looking at before it's too late to respond. And this raises a pointed question. If they're worried about anomalies, what specifically are they worried about? Does 3i Atlas have anomalies? Consider the frequency of interstellar detections. We've discovered 3 objects from beyond the solar system in less than a decade. 3. Before 2017, we'd never confirmed a single one. Now we're averaging nearly 1 every 3 years. Oumuamua in 2017, Borisov in 2019, and now Atlas in 2025. Each object is strange in its own way. Each raises questions we don't have frameworks to answer, and each time the gap between public reassurance and private concern seems to widen just a little bit more. Perhaps the agencies have learned something from those earlier encounters. Perhaps they've decided that no threat and fully understood aren't the same thing. Perhaps, just perhaps, they're preparing for the possibility that this object, like those before it, is more than it appears. So we're stuck with a paradox, an object that can't hurt us being watched like it might, a campaign framed as science, structured like defense, statements saying everything is fine while actions suggest we're bracing for something, and we can only guess at what that something is. 3i Atlas, the observation protocol. English translation, parts 4 and 5. Part 4, the main hypotheses and binary test. A direct question needs to be asked. What if it's not natural? 3 paths open up from here. 3 different explanations for what 3i Atlas could be. Hypothesis 1. It's a natural comet, but an unusual one. The universe is vast. Chemical composition is incredibly diverse. Some processes we still don't fully understand. This is possible. Strange ices from a different stellar environment, outgassing patterns affected by interstellar radiation exposure, brightness variations from irregular shape and rotation. Strange composition simply because it came from a different star system under different chemical conditions? It's completely plausible. We would simply be overinterpreting noise as signal, mistaking complexity for intentionality. We'd let our hopes and fears project meaning onto something fundamentally ordinary. We wouldn't be the first civilization to see faces in clouds or hear messages in static. Hypothesis 2, it's a designed object, a probe, a beacon. Physics permits interstellar travel. The engineering challenges are substantial but not impossible. If there's another technical civilization, they might have sent something. If they wanted it to pass through the solar system undetected, they'd try to make it look like a comet. A probe designed to mimic nature would have the same spectral signature as a natural comet, but with artificial mechanisms underneath. Consider the signs. A precise orbit, not a random escape, but a calculated arrival. Composition anomalies unexplainable by natural chemistry, a light pattern that flickers in ways no comet should. That could be a propulsion signature, a communication burst, or power cycling. Brightness variations. That could be the reflection pattern of a designed object, not a natural rock. Outgassing behavior, not from solar heating, but from deliberate venting or mechanisms. Perihelion timing, precise, as if it was planned to approach the sun at a specific time. If all of this is true, we face an even harder question. How would we prove it? Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from natural processes to primitive observers like us. And any sufficiently designed system will mimic nature perfectly. Hypothesis 3. It's not just designed, it's responsive. If hypothesis 2 is true, there's another possibility. It doesn't just exist, it observes. It might not be a passive probe, but something ready to respond. Machine learning systems flag behavioral rules hidden beneath the noise. High-energy particle correlations. The object emits or responds to radiation from the sun. Orbital adjustments, not random, not the sun's gravity alone. Calculated corrections, possibly conscious guidance. Signal clusters, non-random bursts, possibly intentional transmission or encoding. Approach vector, not passive falling toward the sun, active guidance toward Earth's observation window. If this is the actual truth, then it's not just a story about an encounter. It's about recognizing that we're no longer an independent species. We're being observed. An object from interstellar space doesn't just pass through. It was led here. It's watching us. Binary test, how to distinguish. So how can we tell the difference? There are several observable characteristics. Brightness curve after perihelion. If it's natural, it will fade smoothly. If it's designed, there might be stepwise changes or plateau signs of active power management. Spectral emissions. Science shows simple elements. Design shows rare elements, elements that shouldn't naturally be stable outside the solar system. Light polarization. Natural would be chaotic. Designed would show a pattern, signs of intentional structure. Radio signals. There should be nothing. But if there are small pulses at specific frequencies, especially at 1.42 GHz, the hydrogen frequency, then that's something. Orbital deviations, small changes compared to what gravity alone would predict. Every millimeter per second off the model would be a sign of active control. These thresholds are only suggestive, they're not official confirmation, but if we see them, it would be significant. Part 5. Counterargument and orthodox perspective. But before we decide, let's hear what the official argument says. For good reasons, the most rational language we can find. NASA's argument. NASA says the object will pass 1.8 astronomical units away from us. That's 168 million kilometers. The moon is only 384,000 kilometers away. So by cosmic standards, 3. Atlas isn't even nearby. It's barely out on the street. They have a point. Distance is a fact. But this argument only holds true if the object is passive. If it has propulsion, if it has engines, then 168 million kilometers is just a number that could change. If it can communicate, radio waves know nothing about distance. NASA is assuming we're safe just because it's far away. But safe from what? From a passive object, not from something capable. SETI's argument. SETI. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence has a different argument. Even if 3I Atlas is artificial, even if it's a probe from an alien civilization, why mobilize military defense systems? If they want to communicate, they'll broadcast a message. If they're friendly, they'll signal. Therefore, coordinated observation is science, not military. That's reasonable logic. But it assumes an alien civilization would act the way we want them to act. Our history says otherwise. Reconnaissance precedes invasion. Psychological surveys precede war. A probe doesn't need to broadcast. It needs to gather data. It needs to be subtle. It needs to report home. SETI wants to believe that aliens will be kind, but SETI is an organization of dreamers. It's not an organization of people experienced in conducting war. Defense Department's argument. The Defense Department says we're just being cautious. This is standard procedure. Caution is good policy. But caution doesn't explain why we're using machine learning systems to scan for anomalies. Doesn't explain why we're activating classified data sets. Doesn't explain why the timeline has accelerated from routine to emergency coordination. Caution sounds reasonable, but it's also the perfect refusal to answer hard questions. IAWN's argument. IAWN says, hyperbolic orbits are normal for interstellar visitors. We've seen them before. This is simply a scientific observation. They're right that hyperbolic orbits are normal, but they don't explain why detection frequency has spiked so dramatically. Before 2017, we'd never confirmed an interstellar object. After 2017, nearly routinely. 3 objects in less than a decade. Is that an improvement in telescope technology? Or are there more flyovers, and we're just starting to notice? The remaining gaps. All the official arguments have logic, but none of them explain the complete picture. If the object is harmless, why is classified satellite being repositioned? One could say it's standard procedure, but standard for what? There's no standard procedure for safe comets. Standards only exist for things that cause concern. If the orbit is already determined, and it is, why do we need 2 months of continuous observation. 1 or 2 observations would determine everything. 2 months of global coordination suggests that things are changing, or things we need to understand much better. If NASA is really confident, why avoid the hard questions? Silence is an answer. It's just not one anyone accepts. So where are we? We have official statements with logic but incomplete. We have actions suggesting worry that official language denies. And we have a few weeks before the campaign ends, before data gets classified, before answers vanish into the gaps of the system where data can stay silent forever. Part 6, Twist, the larger conspiracy connection. Opening the twist. But there's a detail that all official arguments miss. 3 is not a single isolated event. It's part of a larger pattern. And the leaders know this already. In August 2025, 2 months before the public event, analysts at NORAD detect an anomaly. When reviewing satellite data from previous years, they discover high-energy particle bursts. No natural astronomical source explains them. These signals are not random. They cluster around the times when previous interstellar objects, Oumuamua, Borisov, passed near the Sun. The energy signature matches what models predict 3I Atlas will emit. Conclusion: these aren't comets. They're emitting something, and something has been tracking them before we detect them. The secret meeting. A meeting is held. The exact dates are never made public, but fragments suggest it happens in mid-September. Those in the room include the President, the Director of National Intelligence, the Secretary of Defense, the NASA Administrator, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and 3 representatives from an agency whose identity is never publicly revealed. According to anonymous sources, that agency is connected to a classified space program, what conspiracy theorists call the truth of ours. The argument presented is crystal clear. We're being visited, not threatened, but visited. And these visits are not random, they're calculated. Other nations know this too. China has similar data. Russia has flagged anomalies. India is monitoring. If we panic publicly, we lose diplomatic initiative. If we militarize openly, we look like we're preparing for war. The solution? Create a public campaign called science. But in reality, it's a test. A test of global planetary defense infrastructure for the first time. A test to see if nations will cooperate or compete. A test to see if data will be shared or withheld and classified. What the campaign really is, the 3I Atlas Astrometry Campaign, is not science. It's a global strategic exercise. All the observations being collected aren't just to measure the orbit. They're to tell decision makers which nations comply with orders immediately, which nations delay or demand verification, which nations go silent and establish parallel observation of their own, which data gets shared publicly, which data gets classified. The machine learning systems don't scan for anomalies to better understand 3I Atlas. They scan to see what other models see, to check if there are repeating patterns from Oumuamua or Borisov, to see if these visits follow a particular route. Military satellites aren't repositioned because of worry about the object itself. They're repositioned to see who else is looking, to see if China or Russia are warning other nations, to see who's sharing data through unofficial channels. Classified protocols are activated because a decision has been made, Next time, and there will be a next time, we need to know how we'll respond. Will it be unification under single leadership? Or will each nation claim ownership, fight, and retreat into their own silos? 3. Atlas isn't a story about a comet. It's a story about humanity preparing for the first time to act as a unified entity, or to confirm that we never will. The hidden timeline. There's a real timeline running parallel to the public one. August 2025. NORAD detects anomalous patterns. A decision is made at the highest level. September 2025. A global strategic meeting, never entered into official records. Major nations are notified in silence. October 2025. 3. Atlas is announced publicly. The campaign is framed as science. Global infrastructure is activated. November 2025. January 2026. Data is collected not just about the object, but about the behavior of nations, their willingness to cooperate, their level of trust. February 2026. The campaign officially ends. Data is analyzed. Nations are ranked by their capacity for cooperation in a genuine crisis. And then, waiting. Waiting for the next object, because it will come. And when it arrives, we'll have a procedure. We'll know who will cooperate. We'll know who will flee. We'll know who will claim ownership of the entire sky. The real secret. The secret is not that 3.0 Atlas might be artificial. We already have hints that not all interstellar visitors are natural rocks. The secret is not that we'll be invaded. We have no evidence of that. The real secret is we know we're not alone. We know we're being watched. And we're building infrastructure to decide whether to share that truth or not. Next time, when an object arrives with unmistakable properties, a signature that can't be natural, a message that can't be random, we'll already have a procedure. And nations will have to choose. Transparency or secrecy, unity or fragmentation, wonder or fear. 3i Atlas isn't an event. It's a practice run. It's a way of saying, if it happens, we'll be ready. Or it might be a way of saying, if it happens, we'll stay silent. Nobody outside that room knows which option will be chosen. Part 7. Countdown and open ending. Perihelion. Approaching. Perihelion has arrived. 3. Atlas is now at its closest approach to the Sun in late October 2025. Just days away now. This is the moment when truth will be revealed or hidden. Solar heating will be at maximum. If it's a natural comet, its orbit will stabilize under the influence of gravity. But if it has engines, if it needs to stabilize its own orbit, then propulsion systems will be activated. If it communicates, signals will be sent. If it collects data, sensors will light up. Within the next 72 hours, from October 24th to 27th, everything will be visible. Every secret will be exposed or covered up. And the decisions made in those secret meetings will begin to take effect. What you should observe. If you have the ability to observe a telescope, a camera, even radio equipment, this is the most critical moment. Its brightness. Watch the brightness hour by hour. Will it fade smoothly or in steps? Record every observation. Save raw files, not processed JPEGs. Raw data, with all the original details intact. its spectrum. If you have spectral filters, record the elements. Which elements are glowing? What unusual elements appear? Hydrogen, helium, carbon, what you'd expect from a comet, or rare elements that shouldn't naturally exist in space? Radio signals. If you have radio equipment, scan the frequencies. 1.42 GHz, that's the frequency of hydrogen, and also the frequency that any civilization trying to communicate would use. Are there any pulses, any patterns, anything unexplainable by natural astronomy? Record everything. Exact time in UTC, your coordinates, your equipment, sky conditions, everything. Because this data will help verify any discovery. The observer community, don't do it alone. Thousands of others will also be observing. Record your data, share it, find other observers and compare your notes. If 10,000 independent people see the same thing, it can't be classified. It can't disappear. There are organized groups. Amateur observatories worldwide. Amateur radio networks. Citizen science platforms. Find them. Join them. Collaborate. Verify each other. If government agencies decide to stay silent, public data will be our voice. If they decide to share, our data will strengthen their case, or it will conflict with it, or it will add evidence for a different truth. But the data must exist. It must be distributed. It must be verifiable. The next object. One crucial thing. 3. Atlas will pass and depart. It will disappear into the far reaches of its hyperbolic orbit. The media cycle will move on to other stories. Public attention will fade. But the agencies won't forget. The schedule has been set. Infrastructure has been built. Nations have been ranked according to how they cooperated. The next object will come. Based on current detection rates, it could arrive in 2026 or 2027, or maybe 2030, but it will arrive. And when it does, the procedure will be ready. Nations will know how to respond, or they'll know that nothing will happen at all. A precedent has been established. From here on, every new interstellar object will be handled the same way. Global observation. Managed data sharing. The decision to understand or stay silent made at the highest levels. The choice. We're at a threshold, a point where history will look back and say this is when humanity decided to step forward or step back. If we choose transparency, if we choose to share what we know, then we acknowledge a new reality. We're not alone. We're being watched. We're part of something larger. It will be unsettling. It will be frightening. But it will also awaken us. We'll have to unify. We'll have to be one species, not a collection of nations. If we choose secrecy, if we keep it hidden, then we continue as if we're on the periphery of the entire universe. We'll be in darkness. But we'll also be in control. We'll hold the power of knowledge. Decisions were made in those secret rooms. But those decisions can change. If enough people demand the truth, it will be harder to keep secret. So observe, record, share, ask questions, refuse to accept we don't know when clearly someone knows. Refuse to accept it's not your concern when it affects all of us. The open ending. 3. Atlas is still out there, moving closer to the sun, emitting energy that we still don't understand. It doesn't care about our thoughts. It doesn't notice our telescopes or our anxieties. It follows the equations of orbital mechanics with perfect indifference. But there's something there. Whether it's natural or artificial, there's something. And we'll know soon, or we'll be told that we'll know soon, or the truth will be classified. The universe has knocked on our door. We're preparing to answer. But how we answer, with curiosity or fear, with welcome or war, with open doors or locked ones, depends on the decisions made in the weeks ahead. So stay alert, wake up, watch the sky. Because the sky is watching back. S, K, N, and D, N, G, Eng, T, I, S, T, Eng, H, P, L, I, N, H, N, S, K, N, G, N, Trong, K, G, B, N, V, L, E, N, K, T, V, I, D, E, N, T, K, C, T, T, V, L, E, G. Perfect. T, I, V, A, T, O, M, T, F, L, T, N, G, H, P, G, D, I, T, 2, N, B, S, K, N, I, G, N, A, K, K, A, B, N, V, I, N, G, A, N, E, C, T, T, F, G, E, T, M, T, 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 C, C, S, K, N, C, H, N, H, P, N, 1, O, O, D, 24, D, U, 700, U, T, A, D, G, N, G, B, angry, He, 2, N, U, K, E, E, O, T, V, T, D, N, Q, N, S, A, V, Nazi, Northern, Verse, A, G, Vul, PGN, 2, B, A, C, N, H, E, N, D, T, T, N, M, E, D, O, N. Campaign 2, F, A, N, G, 6, E, H, U, L, E, H, N, G, R, I, N, V, N. Dr. Lindley Johnson, 1. 8 AU 168 Tri U Comanta PHN3 DKI NPTE N NAMPHI Automated Survey Telescope 3 VTTH Heli N Sao Trong Gain N M Umuamua 2000 Borisov 2019 Atlas 2025 QO Hyperbolic Do KKH KH Inum PHICDN Anomalies, light flickers, chemistry alien, orbit escape from nowhere. PHN4, GI 2E T and binary test. 3 GI 2E T. TAEN, ANTO, Pan Eng DU. PN by T, S Eng, PTN, QEN, QOPHN5, PHNBIN, NASA, CONCH N to N, LHNG, GBAN, IAWN, QOTNEN, LHNG, KNGI, TEATN, Sud TTN, Kuai Png, CCN THEN, LHNG Sao ML, anomaly detection, PGen 6, twist, timeline, BEIU, THNG 8, NORAD, PTEA, NENG, NANGL, NEHT, DATE, NG, N9, QC, H, P, Chi, NL, C, T, I, T, NG plus QQ C B E plus NNE C E N I B M D